In June of 1957, Ted Williams was 38 years old, a Marine Corps combat aviator who had lost nearly 5 seasons of his prime to 2 wars. Mickey Mantle was 25, the reigning American League Most Valuable Player, the reigning Triple Crown winner, the fastest player in the league on a pair of legs doctors had told him should not be running. They were chasing each other for the American League batting title for the 2nd straight year. They were the 2 best hitters in baseball, separated by 13 years, and they were about to give each other the most memorable head-to-head batting race in modern American League history. The things Ted Williams had said about Mickey Mantle a few months earlier in a clubhouse in the Bronx would haunt Mickey Mantle for the next 38 years of his life. Ted Williams looked at Mickey Mantle and told the world exactly what he saw. Then, at age 38, the old man went out and proved Mickey Mantle wrong about who the best hitter in baseball was. Almost 40 years later, on a piece of yellow legal paper in a Dallas hospital room, a dying Mickey Mantle finally wrote down the answer. But before we get to what Mickey wrote, before we get to the batting race that broke him, you have to understand the man who saw it coming. You have to understand Ted Williams. Ted Williams played his entire career for the Boston Red Sox from 1939 to 1960, a span of 22 calendar years that included only 19 actual seasons. He missed 3 full seasons to serve as a naval aviator in World War II. He missed most of 1952 and 1953 to fly Marine combat missions in Korea. He retired with a career batting average of .344, 4th all-time. He retired with a career on-base percentage of .482, the highest in the history of professional baseball, a record that has never been broken. He retired with 521 home runs, 3rd all-time at the time of his retirement, behind only Babe Ruth and Jimmy Fox. He won 6 American League batting titles. He won 2 Triple Crowns. He hit .406 in 1941 and remains the last player in Major League history to bat over 400 for a full season. The men who played against him knew what he was. Ty Cobb, who finished his career with a lifetime batting average of .366 and was the all-time hits leader for almost 60 years, told reporters in 1958 that if Williams had learned to hit to left, Ted would have broken every record in the book. Cobb thought Ted Williams should have surpassed him. Joe DiMaggio thought Ted Williams was the best pure hitter he ever played against. Babe Ruth, in April of 1947, told the Boston Globe he would not be surprised if Ted Williams broke his single-season home run record of 60. Ruth said it 16 months before he died of throat cancer. The greatest hitters of 3 different generations all looked at Ted Williams and saw the same thing. What Ted Williams saw in Mickey Mantle was not a hitter who would break Ruth's home run record. Williams was too sharp a student of the game for that. What he saw was a hitter who could break the 400 barrier that no one had broken since Williams himself in 1941. In the spring of 1957, sitting with sports writers in Sarasota during Red Sox training camp, Williams was asked directly whether Mickey Mantle could ever bat .400. Williams did not hesitate. "Absolutely," he said. "Mickey has everything going for him. He has the speed to beat out bunts, the power to drive it past them if they creep in on him, and he hits both ways, so you can't play him in any particular field." That was the prophecy, spoken by the only living man who had ever done it. Williams saw a switch hitter with the kind of speed Williams himself, who was not a fast runner, had never possessed. He saw a kid who could leg out infield hits to push his average up by 10 points across a 154-game season. Williams was right that this was a real possibility. He saw raw talent that could change the math of a season. In 1956, when Mickey Mantle won the Triple Crown, he was hitting over 400 as late as June 8th. He was hitting .376 at the All-Star break. He had hit 9 home runs in the Yankees' first 18 games of the season. He had hit a home run off Pedro Ramos of the Washington Senators on May 30th at Yankee Stadium that struck the upper deck facade in right field, just feet from being the first fair ball ever hit out of the original Yankee Stadium. He was the most dangerous switch hitter the American League had ever seen. And he was 24 years old. The ceiling Williams identified was not a fantasy. It was the ceiling of a player who, on natural talent alone, was perhaps more gifted than Williams himself. And that is what makes the rest of the story so painful. Because over the next decade, Ted Williams's prophecy did not come true. Mickey Mantle never hit 400. He never came close to it again after 1956. He never won another batting title. The kid Ted Williams said could hit 400 every year if he had Williams's discipline finished his career with a .298 lifetime batting average. And the reasons why are the reasons Mickey Mantle himself, decades later, would finally and quietly admit, in the hardest words a baseball player ever has to write down. He wrote them in his own hand, on yellow legal paper, in a Dallas hospital room in the last months of his life. And the name at the center of what he wrote was Ted Williams. The 1957 season is the season that proved Ted Williams was right. To understand it, you have to understand what had happened the previous September. Ted Williams and Mickey Mantle had gone down to the wire for the American League batting title. Mantle was the man of the year. He was about to win the Triple Crown. He was 24 years old, the most exciting young player in baseball. Williams was 37 and grinding. On the final day of the season, Mantle finished at .353. Williams finished at .345. Mantle had won the batting title by 8 points. Reporters wedged their way into the visiting clubhouse at Yankee Stadium afterwards and asked Williams the question they always asked him. They asked how Mickey Mantle had done what he just did. Ted Williams, who had spent his entire career resenting reporters and walking out on questions like that one, looked up and answered. He said, "If I could run like Mantle, I would hit 400 every year." It was one of the most generous things any all-time great ever said about any contemporary. It was Ted Williams, 10 minutes after losing a batting title to a 24-year-old, telling baseball the kid had something he himself had never possessed. He went home to Florida and brooded about it all winter. The Red Sox were a mediocre team. Boston had not won a pennant since 1946, the year Williams led them to the World Series and lost in 7 games to the St. Louis Cardinals. Williams had no postseason to play for. He had no MVP candidacy that the writers with whom he openly feuded were ever going to give him. He had only one thing left to prove. He could still out-hit Mickey Mantle. The next season opened, and Ted Williams started swinging the bat in a way that no 38-year-old in the history of baseball had ever swung it. By the end of April, he was hitting .426. By the end of May, he was hitting .401. By June 5th, his batting average was still over 400. He was 8 years older than the average major leaguer in the league he was playing in. He was carrying scar tissue from a fractured elbow he had suffered in the 1950 All-Star Game, catching a Ralph Kiner line drive against the railing in left field at Comiskey Park. He was carrying memories of crash-landing a Marine Panther jet in Korea after taking anti-aircraft fire. He should not have been able to do what he was doing. He did it anyway. Ted Williams hit .388 for the entire season. He hit .453 in the second half of the year. He hit .632 in September and October over 12 games. He won the American League batting title by 23 points over Mickey Mantle, who finished at .365. The lead changed hands 8 different times that summer. Mantle led on June 29th by 34 points, .389 to Williams's .355. Williams chased him down through July and August. By August 31st, Mantle led by 1 point, .378 to .377. Then, between September 2nd and September 17th, Williams did not play a single game because of a respiratory infection that nearly killed him. When he came back on September 17th, Williams reached base in 16 consecutive plate appearances, 6 hits, 9 walks, and 1 hit by pitch. He hit 4 home runs in 4 official at-bats over a span that began with a pinch-hit homer. By September 22nd, when Mantle played his last meaningful game of the season, Williams led by 18 points and was still climbing. He led the major leagues in batting average, on-base percentage, and slugging percentage at age 38. He hit 38 home runs in 132 games, his highest total since 1949. He drew 119 walks. He had a .526 on-base percentage, the second highest of his entire career. The .388 batting average remains, to this day, the highest batting average ever achieved by a player at age 38 or older in the history of Major League Baseball. Ted Williams did all of this while standing in left field for the worst Red Sox team Boston had fielded since World War II, and he did it specifically because Mickey Mantle had beaten him the year before. He did it as a message. He did it as proof. And the message Ted Williams was sending was not just to Mickey Mantle. It was about the difference between what Mickey Mantle was and what Mickey Mantle could have been. Ted Williams, when he was praised for his natural ability and his eyesight, hated it. He hated that line of conversation more than almost any other thing reporters could say to him. He would tell them, "No one ever swung a bat more often than I did." He would tell them no one practiced harder than I did. Ted Williams's swing, by the late 1950s, was the most studied swing in baseball. He had divided the strike zone into 77 squares. He knew his batting average against pitches in every one of those 77 squares. He knew which pitches in the zone he hit at 400 and which pitches in the zone he hit at 230. He took the pitches he could not hit even when they were strikes. Williams would later put all of this into a book called The Science of Hitting, published in 1970, that became the most important book on hitting ever written. Warren Buffett would later say his entire investment philosophy was based on Ted Williams's strike zone discipline. Wait for the perfect pitch. Don't swing at anything else. Ted Williams knew Mickey Mantle did not approach hitting that way. Mickey Mantle was a swinger. Mickey Mantle struck out 1,710 times in his career, the third most in Major League history when he retired. Mickey Mantle did not divide the strike zone into 77 squares. Mickey Mantle hit pitches he should not have been hitting because he was strong enough and fast enough to hit them anyway. When Ted Williams said Mickey Mantle could hit 400, he was not really saying it about speed. He was saying it about discipline. He was saying Mickey Mantle had every natural tool but did not yet have the mental ones. And by hitting .388 at age 38 in front of a roaring American league, Ted Williams was demonstrating which tools mattered most. Mickey Mantle saw it. He saw it in real time. There is a story baseball historians have told for decades, sourced to multiple Yankees of the period and to Ted Williams's biographer, Ben Bradley Jr., in the 800-page biography, The Kid. When the Boston Red Sox came to Yankee Stadium for a series, Mickey Mantle would stop whatever he was doing in the Yankees clubhouse and walk out to the dugout to watch Ted Williams take batting practice. He would stand there in his Yankees uniform and watch a Red Sox left fielder swing a bat. He did this throughout his career. Mickey Mantle, the most famous athlete in America in the 1950s, the heir of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Joe DiMaggio, voluntarily watched Ted Williams hit. Years later, Mickey Mantle explained it simply. He said the best hitter I ever saw was Ted Williams. He said if we were choosing sides and every player was in the pool, my first pick would be Whitey Ford and my second would be Ted Williams. Mantle put Williams above Joe DiMaggio. He put Williams above Willie Mays. He put Williams above Hank Aaron. He put Williams above Stan Musial. He put Williams above himself. Mickey Mantle, the man, autographed a baseball at some point during the 1950s or early 1960s and inscribed it personally for Ted Williams. The inscription read, "To my idol." That baseball still exists. It was photographed in Ted Williams's home in Florida by a Seattle Times reporter in 1994, when Williams was 75 years old and recovering from a stroke. It sat on the table next to his couch. "To my idol," signed Mickey Mantle. the greatest switch hitter in baseball history, calling Ted Williams his idol. Mickey Mantle understood, while he was still playing, that Ted Williams was right about hitting. He understood that Ted Williams was right about him. He just could not become Ted Williams. And the reasons why are the rest of this story. Mickey Mantle's body was breaking from the day he became a Yankee. In the second game of the 1951 World Series against the New York Giants, Mickey Mantle was 19 years old, playing right field at Yankee Stadium next to Joe DiMaggio in DiMaggio's final season. A Giants rookie named Willie Mays hit a fly ball to right center field. Manager Casey Stengel had told Mantle to chase everything. Mantle ran for it. DiMaggio called him off. Mantle stopped short, caught his right spike on a wooden drain pipe in the outfield grass, and tore the cartilage in his right knee so completely that the knee was never the same again. He was 19. He had been a major leaguer for less than a year. He had already been carrying osteomyelitis in his left ankle since a high school football kick had infected the bone in 1947. The 1951 knee injury was the first of the catalogue. Mantle would later list them in interviews. A pulled right thigh muscle in 1955, a sprained left knee, and a tonsillectomy the next year, an injured right shoulder in 1957, a fractured right index finger 2 years later, an abscessed hip in 1961, a heavy fall on the left knee, a ribcage injury, a broken metatarsal bone in his left foot. He played 18 seasons for the New York Yankees. He played all of them on legs that were essentially destroyed before he turned 25, and while he was playing all of them, he was drinking. The drinking started, by Mantle's own account, in 1952, after his father, Mutt Mantle, died of Hodgkin's disease at age 39. Mickey was 20. Every man in his family had died young. His grandfather had died young, his uncle had died young, his father had died at 39. Mickey Mantle was, from the day his father died until his own death from liver cancer, convinced he would not live past 40. He drank as if he had no time. He told reporters near the end, "If I'd known I was going to live so long, I'd have taken better care of myself." This is what Ted Williams saw. This is what Ted Williams' own life made impossible to miss. Ted Williams was 13 years older than Mickey Mantle. Ted Williams had been born in 1918. He had grown up poor in San Diego with a Salvation Army street worker for a mother who was almost never home and an alcoholic father who was almost never sober. Ted Williams hated alcohol. He hated everything alcohol had done to his father. He drank milkshakes. He stayed in his hotel room reading hunting magazines and tying fishing flies on road trips while his teammates went out for steaks and bourbon. He woke up the morning after a 4 for 5 night and was in the trainer's room at 7 in the morning, asking the trainer to throw him batting practice in an empty park. He logged his at-bats in a notebook he carried in his back pocket. He logged the pitches and the counts and the pitches and the locations and the results. He could tell you, at age 80, what a pitcher had thrown him in a 1942 spring training game in Sarasota, Florida. He had memorized the entire American League. Ted Williams did not have Mickey Mantle's body. Ted Williams did not have Mickey Mantle's speed. Ted Williams did not have Mickey Mantle's switch-hitting genius. Ted Williams had everything else, and he built every additional gear of his career out of the absolute discipline of treating his body and his mind like instruments that he was personally responsible for tuning. He hit .388 at age 38 in 1957. He hit .328 to lead the American League again at age 39 in 1958. He hit .316 at age 41 in his final season in 1960. He homered in his final at-bat on September 28, 1960, at Fenway Park, off Baltimore Orioles pitcher Jack Fisher in the 8th inning of a meaningless game. The on-deck hitter was a rookie catcher named Jim Pagliarone. Pagliarone later said he watched Williams round the bases for the last time and dropped his bat in the on-deck circle and started to cry. That was what discipline looked like. That was what Ted Williams' career was. And every single Yankee in the visiting clubhouse at Fenway Park knew exactly how Ted Williams had gotten there. Mickey Mantle, of course, did not get there. Mickey Mantle's career began to decline before he turned 30. By 1962, his legs were so bad he could no longer steal bases. By 1965, he was being moved out of center field. By 1967, he was being moved to first base because he could no longer cover ground anywhere else. He retired on March 1, 1969, at age 37. He had played 18 seasons. He had hit 536 home runs, third all-time at the time of his retirement, behind only Babe Ruth and Willie Mays. He had won 3 Most Valuable Player awards. He had won the Triple Crown in 1956. He had played in 12 World Series and won 7 of them. He had been a 16-time All-Star. By any reasonable measurement, Mickey Mantle had been one of the 10 greatest players in the history of baseball. And he knew every day for the rest of his life that he had left more on the field than any other player ever had left. He had left it in bar rooms. He had left it in hotel rooms. He had left it on the trainer's table when the trainer asked if he was going to do his rehab, and he said no. He had left it because he had not been Ted Williams. The Yankees retired Mickey Mantle's number 7 on June 8, 1969, at Yankee Stadium. Joe DiMaggio presented him with the plaque. Mickey Mantle stood at the microphone in front of more than 60,000 fans and gave a speech that quoted Lou Gehrig's farewell from 30 years earlier. Gehrig had said on July 4, 1939, with ALS taking his body apart, that he was the luckiest man on the face of the earth. Mickey Mantle, on June 8, 1969, said this. He said, "I have often wondered how a man who knew he was going to die could stand here and say he was the luckiest man on the face of the earth." He said, "But now I think I know how Lou Gehrig felt." Mantle was 37. He had no idea then how soon he would learn the rest of what Gehrig had felt. Mickey Mantle's final years were the years in which Ted Williams was finally proven right, in the most public possible way. Mantle's drinking, which had been a clubhouse legend during his playing days, became a national tragedy after his retirement. He drank through his 40s, he drank through his 50s. He missed his children's lives. His son Billy died of a heart attack in 1994 at age 36 after a long battle with Hodgkin's disease, the same disease that had killed Mickey's father Mutt at age 39. Mickey Mantle finally checked himself into the Betty Ford Center that January. He was 62 years old. He had been drinking, by his own admission to the staff there, for 43 years. He stayed in treatment until February. He came out sober. He stayed sober. On May 28, 1995, he was diagnosed with liver cancer at Baylor University Medical Center in Dallas, Texas. He received a liver transplant on June 8. The transplant did not save him. The cancer had already metastasized. On July 11th, in a press conference at Baylor that was televised live across America, Mickey Mantle, gaunt and yellow-skinned, sat at a microphone and gave the most painful interview a former athlete has ever given on American television. He said, "I want to say to kids out there, if you are looking for a role model, this is a role model. Don't be like me." He looked into the camera and said it again. "Don't be like me." He died 1 month later on August 13th. He was 63 years old. What almost no one knew until a handwritten letter surfaced at a Leland's auction in June of 2020 was that during these last months, Mickey Mantle had been working on a book project, and on a piece of yellow legal paper in his own handwriting, he had written words that finally and explicitly admitted Ted Williams had been right. In his own hand, he wrote that he wanted to dedicate the book to all his friends, old, new, and especially young friends, and please don't do alcohol and drugs. "I never did drugs, but alcohol hurt my career terribly," he wrote. He went on, "People used to ask who was better, Willie, Mickey, or Duke. I think you have to look at final statistics, and Willie was far ahead at the end." Then he wrote the line that mattered most. "Guys who took good care of themselves like Willie, Hank Aaron, Stan Musial, Ted Williams, Joe D, etc. were the ones at the top of the final stats." He wrote, "I did play in more games as a Yankee than anyone, but if I had taken better care of myself, I could have done a lot better." He wrote, "I didn't even take care of or do my rehab on my legs like I was supposed to." He wrote, "I drank too much when I was playing from 1952, after my dad died, until 1969. After I retired in 1969, I drank more and more. I'll always be ashamed of." The handwritten note sold at auction in 2020 for $8,666. Mickey Mantle had named, in his own handwriting, the men who had taken care of themselves the way he wished he had. The first name on the list was Willie Mays. The fourth name on the list was Ted Williams. He named Williams in writing in his own hand in his last months on Earth. And what he was admitting in that note was exactly what Ted Williams had been telling the baseball world about Mickey Mantle since the spring of 1957. He was admitting that the difference between his career and Williams's career was discipline. The natural talent had been more than enough. The natural talent had been more than Williams's. Mantle had said it himself in countless interviews over the years. "Sometimes I think if I had the same body and the same natural ability and someone else's brain, who knows how good a player I might have been," he had said. The brain he was thinking of was Ted Williams's. He had been saying it for 40 years. The numbers tell the rest of the story in a way that almost feels cruel. Ted Williams played 19 seasons. He missed nearly 5 of them to military service. He retired at age 41 with a career batting average of .344, fourth all-time. Mickey Mantle played 18 seasons. He missed none of them to military service. He retired at age 37 with a career batting average of .298. Williams's lifetime on-base percentage of .482 has never been broken in 65 years of subsequent baseball. Mantle's lifetime on-base percentage was .421. Williams won 6 batting titles. Mantle won 1. Williams hit .388 at age 38. Mantle did not finish a single season above .321 after age 30. Williams's last season as an everyday player ended with a home run in his last at-bat at age 41. Mantle's last season ended with him playing first base because he could no longer cover the outfield. Williams was, by every account from every man who knew him, a sober man who never drank during the season and rarely drank in the off-season. Mantle was, by his own account in his own handwriting, drunk for most of 17 of his 18 Yankee seasons. The talent had been the other way around. The bodies had been the other way around. The careers had been the other way around. Ted Williams had been right about Mickey Mantle. He had been right when he told reporters that Mickey Mantle had the speed and the power and the switch-hitting genius to bat .400. He had been right that Mickey Mantle was missing the one thing Williams himself had built his entire career on. He had been right because, while Mickey Mantle was running on Mickey Mantle's natural talent, Ted Williams was, at age 38, hitting .388 in the second-worst lineup in the American League by force of pure discipline alone. The story was on the field, in the box scores, every season for the rest of Williams's career. And Mickey Mantle had been watching it from the visiting dugout the entire time, and inscribing baseballs to his idol the entire time, and writing the truth about it in his own hand at the end of his life. There is a final detail that is worth pausing on. When Ted Williams retired in 1960, he ended his career with 521 home runs. He was missing nearly 5 seasons of military service from his statistical record. Baseball historians have spent 6 decades estimating what Williams's career numbers would have been without those 5 seasons. The most commonly cited estimate, anchored to his actual age, adjusted production in the seasons immediately before and after his service, places his projected total somewhere between 680 and 720 home runs. If those years had counted, Williams would have retired second only to Babe Ruth on the all-time home run list. Ahead of Willie Mays, ahead of Hank Aaron's eventual mark, and ahead of Mickey Mantle by nearly 200. Babe Ruth's 1947 prediction would have been right. But that was not the prophecy that mattered to Mickey Mantle. The prophecy that mattered to Mickey Mantle was the smaller one, the personal one, spoken in a Yankee Stadium clubhouse in 1956 and again in a Sarasota spring training press session a few months later. The prophecy was that Mickey Mantle had every tool he needed to hit 400. The prophecy was that the only thing standing between Mickey Mantle and the kind of season Ted Williams had built his career on was Mickey Mantle himself. Ted Williams said it as praise. He meant it as a warning. Mickey Mantle, eventually, after 30 years of carrying it, picked up a pen in a hospital room in 1995 and wrote down the answer. "Don't be like me," Mickey Mantle said on national television in his last summer, looking into the camera with a yellow face and a dying liver. The men who had been like Ted Williams, the men he had named in his own handwriting, were Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Stan Musial, Ted Williams, and Joe DiMaggio. They were the men at the top of the final statistics. They were the men who had treated their bodies and their minds the way Ted Williams had told baseball was the only way to last. Mickey Mantle had not been one of them. He had not been Ted Williams. And in the long run, in the only run that the box scores remember, Ted Williams had been right about him. Right about the talent, right about the ceiling, and right about the difference between what one of those things means and what the other does. The kid from Commerce, Oklahoma, with the body of a Greek statue and the speed of a deer and a switch hitter's genius the American League had never seen, had been told what it would take. He had spent 38 years not doing it. And in his last summer, in his own handwriting, he had finally written the words. Guys who took good care of themselves, like Ted Williams, were the ones at the top of the final stats. Mickey Mantle wrote that down. He named Ted Williams. He admitted on a piece of yellow legal paper in a Dallas hospital what Ted Williams had told the world 4 decades earlier. Ted Williams had been right, and Mickey Mantle had known it all along. Like and subscribe for more baseball documentaries. Until next time.